Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Tiffany. I am a Reiki master, an herbalist, a psychic medium, and I also have a podcast, Heal, Grow, Love. I'm hoping to use this space to create more support for my own Reiki students, and of course also extend that support out to any other energy healers who might need it. I primarily teach Reiki, but I do it in a way that is very inclusive of welcoming in everyone's gifts, very intuitive, and very fluid in the sense that I believe that as energy healers, energy workers, whatever that term is that you might feel called to use, it is our job to show up and be the vessel in which spirit can flow and move from and communicate through, in whatever way we might be called to, in whatever way the person that we're working with might need, or in whatever way we need, because maybe we're working with ourselves on our own personal journey. I have been teaching Reiki for 10 years, and I've been a Reiki master for, I don't know, 15, 16 years, quite a long time. Originally, I learned Reiki for myself. I had no intention of ever teaching a class or ever sharing it with anyone else. I turned to it in my early 20s when I was doing, and if you're one of my students, you've probably heard this story, but if not, I'm going to share anyways. I was doing what people in their early 20s do, and I was having lots of fun, but I was definitely looking for something that was deeper and more meaningful, to find balance. I wasn't going to stop having fun, but I needed to find some sort of balance. And I found Reiki. I found a Reiki class that was happening about an hour away from where I lived. And I signed up for it. I had no idea what Reiki was. I just saw it and signed up for it and showed up. And I quickly fell in love with it. It is such an amazing healing system. Reiki, literally translated, Rei is universal life force energy, or universal life force, and Ki is energy. So Rei is universal, Ki is life force energy. So it is the energy that is in everything all around us. And when we learn Reiki, we learn to channel it in through the crown of our head and bring it out through our hands. Of course, it moves all the way through our bodies and down our feet, and is very protective and very supportive to us in that way, which makes it a little bit unique compared to some other healing modalities. But truly, I've come to understand that, all sorts of different cultures have all sorts of different healing techniques, and they're likely all the same thing. I think when we're channeling energy, aside from certain things like, pranic healing, where you're building up your own energy and giving that to someone else, which I actually feel is probably quite dangerous. I think for the most part, we're all tapping into the same energy. And in my level 1 manual, I talk about how, there are all of these different cultures that have all of these different techniques. I know, and I've even learned a bunch of them. I've learned Seishim, which is the Egyptian technique, and it does have a slightly different set of rules guidelines for how you use it, and it has its own symbols for activating it. And there are, maybe slight differences in frequency that you notice. In Indonesia, they have their own version. England, they have their own version. Reiki, Usui Reiki anyways, came from Japan. He wasn't certainly the first person to use Reiki, but he was someone who made it more readily available for everyone to use. And then Mrs. Takata brought it over to the West, which we'll get into a little bit later, but I'm not too worried about now. And so it's literally channeling the energy that's all around us and directing that for, healing for ourselves, for healing for others, healing for the planet, healing for places and spaces, and all different things. And the beauty is that once you've completed your level 2, you learn how to send that Reiki via distance to everywhere and anywhere. And you can, you know, add this beautiful life force energy. Like I said, I originally only learned it for my own personal growth, personal development, personal interest. And I used it, I would Reiki my food, my drinks, my house. I did use it on some friends and family from time to time. I used it on my pets. I used it, once you've done level 2, you can send it to the future, you can send it to the past, you can do all sorts of magical things. And it really is this universal life force energy. So it doesn't take anything away from you. It doesn't take anything away from someone else. It just adds in this beautiful healing supportive energy for it to use, and it has its own intelligence. So as practitioners, we hope that we are receiving messages clearly. We hope that we receive our guidance clearly. That's something that we'll talk about more in a little bit as well, in order to direct that to the right places and spaces. But the really beautiful thing is that even if we aren't receiving any guidance or any clarity, as long as we are sharing that energy, we are, it'll find its way. It has its own intelligence, and it will find its way to the places and spaces that it needs to be. So it's such a magical tool that really supports everything. And when I say everything, I mean you can use it to support yourself. You can use it to support another modality that you're using. Any sort of, you know, if you're a counselor, if you're a teacher, if you're a massage therapist, if you like work with other people in any way, it's a really magical tool to keep yourself grounded. And in level 1, this is my level 1 manual. In level 1, we really talk a lot about grounding and centering and staying in our own energy and how different ways that we can protect ourselves. And I will definitely share more about that. My goal here is to really just kind of, in a level 1 class, we can only, there's a certain amount of time, and we want to do all of the hands-on practice, and hopefully everything comes up and everything is discussed and everything is definitely in the manual. But sometimes we need a little more support. Sometimes we need to elaborate. Sometimes we need to share more, to express more, to learn more. And some of us are more hands-on learners, and so that style of class works really well. I love teaching that way because it is the most magical thing to watch people suddenly realize that they can channel energy in their hands and that they are this magical creature who can do this. It's really, really special, and is definitely the most important part of teaching a class. But then there are people who want more information or want something to study. And so if you've received my level 1 manual, please go through it. Please read it. And please go through the back area where I also have, this is probably backwards to you, but it's a Reiki workbook, and this is in all of the manuals. This is just my level 1 manual. And so it starts out with places and spaces to note down your daily intentions, and also to just note down how you practiced Reiki that day. And if you've taken a class, or how you've done energy work, or how you've supported yourself in some way. And it has 21 days of this so that you can use that to create a good practice. And then it also has all sorts of questions and prompts to help you, and journal space, to help you sink into your own practice, to help you bring it into your life. Because one of the things that I've noticed, especially with level 1, is that we often take a level 1 class and we're like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And maybe we use it for ourselves. Maybe we don't. Maybe we forget about it because we go home and we get busy and we go, wow, that was a really cool thing. Or maybe we practice for a few days and then we forget. And so this is a really great way to just build it into your life and create cues so that you're building it into your life, so that you're using it on a regular basis if it's something you've done. You're welcome to you can purchase these on Amazon. My name is Tiffany Mayu. I'm the author. I'll share the link down below as well. I have a level 1 and a level 2 book, and I also have a Reiki journal. So no matter where you are in your journey, even if you don't feel called to have a manual, even if you've taken your class with someone else, you can also grab that journal and go through it. Or you can grab your own journal and just make note of how, like, what your daily practice looks like. Because if you're doing any type of energy work, hopefully you have a regular daily practice that you're fitting into your life. I think that's the most important thing. When we step into this big energy, when we decide that we're going to be a healer, whether that's a healer for others or a healer for ourselves, we open up portals for our own healing, and we awaken all sorts of things in us so that we can shift and grow and heal ourselves. And the best thing we can do is practice and practice and practice on ourselves. And so, should we talk about that now? Yeah, let's talk about practicing on ourselves. Although, do you guys feel like you're clear in what Reiki is? I'm sure if you've taken a class or you've done something, you feel pretty clear in what it is and what it is. So let's talk about how to use it and how to incorporate it into our daily lives. So, of course, this is in the manual, and I'm just going to open it up for myself so that I don't forget any of the ways in which I suggested. Maybe I didn't suggest it in this. Maybe I suggested it in level 2. Wouldn't that be funny? Lots of self-care tips for taking care of yourself. Oh yeah, using Reiki on yourself. So I guess it's not so much. It's just written down. So it's not in point form. I should note my own manual looks like, shouldn't I? I actually wrote these manuals many years ago when I began teaching, and I kind of updated them along the way, and then I just published them in the last few months. So now they're available in a real book, and I used to just print them out. But using Reiki on yourself. So in class, if you've been to one of my Reiki classes, we learn how to use Reiki on someone else. We go through the steps, the traditional hand placements, and we work around a person, offering them a treatment. And that way we get to really feel the Reiki, really feel ourselves channeling and embody what that is in whatever way you do, because everyone is different. And some people, very, very traditionally, they feel hot hands. That is the most traditional way that people have the sensation of Reiki flowing through them and flowing out of their hands. Some people will really feel that full channel coming down and through and into their hands. Some people will have different sensations. So some of my students in the past have been people whose intuition is much more like a felt sense in their body. And so when they put their hands on someone or near someone, sending out and sensing that energy, they will actually feel in their body what that other person is feeling, or have some type of sensation that connects to it. So sometimes this happens to me because I do receive intuition in all the ways, and sometimes I will suddenly feel it like a pain in my shoulder, and I might not feel it as deeply as that person, or it shouldn't be something that scares you, because Reiki is only going to be of the highest good to everyone involved. It'll never harm. It can do no harm. So you won't take on from someone, they won't take on from you. You can't give someone too much Reiki. You can't zap them with Reiki, because they will receive what they need. and you in turn as a practitioner will channel through and experience what you need in that moment as well, and what is in your highest good. So it's very, very, very safe, and that is my favorite part about teaching it, and why I love to share it, is because I have so much faith and trust in that. And so I know that if I send someone out into the world suddenly tapped into this energy, it's only going to be protective for them. They can't harm someone else. Some people will use the word Reiki and do other things which could be harmful. I'm just gonna like say that as a disclaimer, if in case someone's like, oh, actually I had this experience. It probably wasn't truly Reiki, or there was Reiki as well as something else, and probably not a very good intention. But your intention is the number one thing. A lot of people will ask, how do I know if I'm actually channeling it? And if you've received an attunement, you are channeling it. It sounds too simple almost to be true, but it is the truth. And sometimes the sensations that we have are very, very subtle, and sometimes they knock our socks off, and then they can be everything else in between. And so it's funny that I still even have this in my manual. It's funny that I still even share this here. When I learned Reiki, one of the students in my class was convinced that she could not do it, that she did not feel anything, and I don't know too much more, because she spoke with my teacher, who I then continued learning Reiki from, because I had an amazing experience. But I think that it stuck with my teacher that this was something that could happen. And in honesty, I've never had that experience. I've been teaching Reiki for basically 10 years. I've taught hundreds of students, and all of them have had some sort of sensation or like feeling of channeling it. That being said, I think also, I learned Reiki almost 10 years prior to when I was began teaching, or 6 or 7 years prior. And the energies here on earth are shifting and changing constantly, all of the time. And so the way we're learning energy work, the way we're channeling energy, is changing and evolving all the time to do exactly that, to work to our highest good, so that we can receive whatever it is that we need in those moments. It's pretty fascinating and quite interesting, and we'll definitely talk more about that in the future as well. But coming back to performing Reiki on ourselves. So we learn how to do that. We learn how to sense it with our hands. And like I said, often it feels hot. Some people will sense things through their body. Some people, one of my very good friends and students, she gets cold hands, and she's like, I don't think I can do it because my hands are freezing. And then she puts her hands on me, and the energy that she is channeling is insane. It's super strong and very pronounced, and I can feel it so clearly and so well. But that's a really good example of, sometimes we have this idea that it should be one way. Sometimes in my hands, I'll have like tingling or prickly sensations. Sometimes it's almost like as I wave my hands over certain areas, I can feel like the density of the energy around them. So sometimes it'll feel like thick and squishy and gooey, and sometimes it'll feel like icky, like I don't even want to touch it or be there. Or sometimes it'll feel like prickly and hard. Sometimes it'll feel nice and smooth and lovely. Sometimes it'll feel like big warm rays of energy. There's so many different sensations, and as a level 1 student, the more that you practice, the more that will become a pronounced experience, that you're able to intellectualize and experience, because energy sometimes doesn't have the right words to describe it. You know, often I'm describing someone's chakras or energy as gooey, as or as a hard shell, full, you know, protected, very like, you know, they have this hard shell of protection around them. All different things like that, because what I see and sense and feel, I mean, there's probably those words are the best things that I can come up with in order to communicate them to someone else, or even in order to like internalize them myself, if I'm not sharing with someone, if I'm just experiencing. And for me, when I learned Reiki, I practiced with the same women for many, many years, and that was a really, really beautiful experience. But it was really when I started working with all sorts of different people that I started to open and have all sorts of different experiences and senses. And so for me, it's something that I had to experience and feel and sense in order to even know it was possible. And that's often what happens in a Reiki session. It can be quite fascinating, because what, like I always try to approach a Reiki session for others and for myself, knowing nothing. And if I know nothing, anything is possible. But when I have a belief or an understanding or a knowing of something, I actually create a box around it or a limit on what could be possible. And so I always like to keep all of those possibilities open. It's just kind of the philosophy that I came into it with, and the one that I try to stick to it. So with that being said, there's so many different ways that we can experience the flow of energy. Sometimes we might feel it in our body as heat, as tingling, as all sorts of different things. I've had students who close their eyes and see more, or see color, or see different things that mean different things to them. I have students, and I myself, like, I hear a lot when I'm in certain areas. If I feel something, I tune in and I listen, and the guides are always communicating to me. I've been doing it a long time, and I'm a medium, so that's what I do. I don't expect my students to have that same level of awareness, because I know that we all lean towards our intuition in different ways. And the more that we can kind of embrace our intuition in the way that it's naturally coming into us, so whether we see, whether we hear, whether we feel, whether we sense or have a knowing of something, because sometimes that's what it is too. We just know, or we will see like different imagery that has meaning or doesn't have meaning to us. Sometimes when we share that imagery with someone else, the person who we're working on, it'll often have meaning to them, and it might make zero sense to us. So it is nice to share those bits and pieces, even when you don't know what it means, because the chances are you don't need to know what it means, and they do. Returning to doing Reiki on ourselves, we can follow those same traditional hand placements for ourselves. So we can begin, you know, working on our head, our ears, our face. Of course, when we're working on ourselves, we can really touch ourselves in places that we might not touch someone else. So for example, I always, you know, when I do Reiki on someone else, I always hold my hands out here. Whereas when I'm doing it on myself, I might put my hands right on my face. You know, when I'm doing Reiki on someone's neck, I hold my hands out here like this often, because I don't want them to worry that I'm going to choke them. Whereas with yourself, you know, you might be called to really deeply touch yourself. Wherever that is, and working down your body. And so interestingly, like when I work with myself that way, I do often do a lot of crosses, because I feel like it's a bit more supportive, but play around. I don't have a lot of rules around the way that I do Reiki or the way that I encourage you to do Reiki, because I want you to feel what feels good to you, what feels right to you, and what is appropriate in that moment. It's the exact same thing as I shared before, my philosophy of I try to show up without a lot of knowing and just follow that intuitive flow, however it might go. And that intuitive flow is often very subtle. Sometimes there are voices that scream at me, and like I said, I am a medium, so I can tune into your guides and follow their guidance. But when I was first learning Reiki, it was often just, maybe I'll put my hands here, and I'd have my hands in 2 different spots. My head and my heart. Maybe I'll put my hands here. And I would see how that feels. Maybe it was, I'll put my hands back on my back, down here. That feels good. Sometimes you have sore spots or places where you want to bring Reiki, and sometimes it's more of an energetic experience. And all we can really do is listen to the nudges. And like I always teach in class, if you're not feeling the nudges or you're feeling self-conscious or unsure, you can always just follow and, keep your hands in each place for 2 minutes. Make sure you get everywhere, right? It's not, it doesn't have to be that complicated. And furthermore, you can simplify it even more because, as I mentioned before, that energy will find its way to wherever it needs to be. And so we can really trust this. And maybe when, we're just hanging out, doing whatever, we have a hand on our heart. And we let ourselves, maybe we have 2 hands on our hearts, and we let that energy flow and flow and flow. Maybe we have one on the back of our neck. And we let that energy flow and flow and flow and flow for a long time. And maybe we only put our hands in 2 different places and we just let that energy flow through us. Maybe we stop and we place our hands up or down on our knees, and we just let that energy flow into our crown, and we bring it all the way through our body and out our feet. That's actually one of my favorite practices, is to just stand up and let that energy flow all the way through the crown of my head, all the way down my body and out my feet. And I think of this like a Reiki shower. And you can apply whatever type of energy healing you might do to that as well. But I think of it like a Reiki shower, and we just let it wash through us. Or you could think of it like a Reiki river. and you just let that energy wash all the way through. Let it wash all of anything you need. You can be very intentional and deep with this. You can just use it as a general like energy cleanse and flush, get it all out and away from you. You can use it to bring more energy into your body. Like, it's actually really, really beautiful to just like once you've done it, once you've felt that release, and maybe you want to try it right now. Maybe you want to take a few breaths and activate your energy channel coming through and in and flowing down and out your hands into the earth and down your legs and feet into the earth. Washing, scrubbing, carrying any sort of energies that don't need to be here away. And in such, revitalizing you, making you feel more energized, more alive, more vibrant than you may have felt a few moments ago. You can draw your Reiki symbols and or just bring energy with your hands into your food or water. You can Reiki and then receive it that way. You can Reiki your bed and then lay in it. You can Reiki a crystal draw your symbols over it, set the intention that it holds Reiki energy for you. I like to use this during sessions as like almost a second hand, but you can use it for yourself, and then you can carry it with you throughout the day. You can lay and sit in meditation with it. I found that when I started doing Reiki and I would just sit and let that energy flow through me, it really cleared out my mind. It really allowed me to like almost instantly drop into a meditative, connective state in a way that I was never really able to before. And I've heard that from quite a few of my students, that it really, really helps to bring in meditation. Like I said, when we cross over our body, I feel like that's really kind of wrapping us in energy. Sometimes I will sit outside and place one hand on my heart and one hand on the earth, and I will share energy flowing through me and flowing out and into the earth. I love that practice as well. It's really, really beautiful to feel that connection, and also to know and remember that we are these beings of unlimited energy. We have unlimited love consciousness in our hearts. When we're channeling through energy, healing energy, Reiki, or some other modality, we're tapping into an unlimited resource. And so it's free to share. It's free to share with the earth, to share with an animal, to share with whatever it is that you might feel called to share it with. And then when you have level 2, you can send it to the future and to the past. And so, you can sit in meditation and you can place your hands on your heart and you can bring up versions of yourself from the past, and you can send them Reiki, or you can send it to them however you might send your distance Reiki, which we'll get into more ways after as well. You can send it to your future. If you have something coming up, an interview, you need to have an important discussion, you want to share something in some way, whatever that is, you can send Reiki to that future version of yourself. You can send Reiki to that moment in the future in order to allow things and encourage things to go smoothly for you. I feel like there's so many, I feel like it's really unlimited. Sometimes I just put a hand on my knee while I'm driving and I let the Reiki energy channel through me. Sometimes I place, like a hand somewhere on my body and I fall asleep that way. Sometimes I'm very relaxed about how I use it, and sometimes I'm very, very intentional about how I use it. And it's really fun to play around with it in all the ways, because when we believe that something is complicated or complex, we often kind of run from it, or we hesitate from it, or we don't use it as much as we could. And when we realize that, yes, these tools are deep and powerful, like so deep and so powerful, but we can also use them in a way that is fun and light and easy throughout our lives. We create a bridge to something that feels out of reach, to something that is just a part of us. And that's the goal. If you found Reiki for some reason, it's because it is meant to be a part of your life. It came into your life for a reason. You went to class on purpose. You probably met some people on purpose. You probably had some experiences all around the whole thing. It's always so fascinating to me how classes come together with just the right people, and also how strange things occur before or after class that teaches us so much, and interesting things happen during class. So I'm going to let that be our discussion for today, doing Reiki on ourselves. And so that's some ways in which you can do Reiki on yourself. If you've watched this video, I have also created some cards that are a printable that you can print out that describe different ways of doing Reiki on yourself. So if you watch this video, leave a comment below or send me a message, and I will send that to you as a gift for being here and sharing this with me today. My intention is to create lots more videos about all of the different topics that are involved with energy healing, right from, what we talked about today, really, really basic stuff, to, more advanced, complex, whatever is kind of needed and whatever feels right, as I always do. If you want some more information or support as well, I also have a podcast, Heal, Grow, Love. And please feel free to comment below with things that you'd like me to talk about. Please feel free to share this with someone. Let's create a system of support, because I know that what we learn in class, we have limited time and also like a limited capacity in that time to take in certain amounts of information. And then sometimes we have questions after, and I'm always here for all of my students for support. But I just thought that this would be kind of a fun and easy way to create like a whole database of all of those questions and all of that support for us to access whenever we might need to, as we might need to. So please feel free to subscribe, and let's be here to support each other. And I'm here to support you, whether you've been a student of mine or not, but especially if you've shared Reiki with me. Yeah, I would really like to be of greater assistance in your journey. So thank you so much, and mwah.